Welcome to my lockdown garden tour. I thought I would give you a quick tour of what we've got going on in the garden at the moment. Right, well, this is my my office where I spend most of my time sitting and contemplating. It's just outside the back door. As you can see here, we've got a wall of culinary herbs, easy to get to without having to get too wet if it's raining. There's a few more down here. Yeah, we have this lovely oil tank. The plan is to continue with these wood planter style in front of it. I've got some birch poles that I'll make a trellis out of, and then just there we've got a winter flowering jasmine, which I'll train up the tank. So as we go round, there's this is a little sort of area that should be full of pretties, but a lot of them died over the winter, and with the garden centres being closed until recently, I've not been able to refresh these. I've got a nice little selection of trees that I keep digging out of the garden. Right, and now we're coming round towards the garden. As we enter the garden, you see in front of us, apart from the tractor and trailer, there's a row of red currants and black currants on the left there, underplanted with strawberries, and I'm doing a corresponding row on the other side, but at the moment I've only got the red currants in. So when I next do the pruning of the black currants, I'll take some cuttings to get the black currants over and collect some strawberry runners at the end of the year to plant underneath the currants. Okay, so as we're walking around into the vegetable garden, this is the wormery, which I've only just finished. Let me stand back so you can admire my work. Ha ha ha. Right, this took about 2 days total, I think. Right, there's 4 60-litre barrels, and they're sunk into part rotted wood chip. And the idea is, if I lift this one off, there's as you can see in the bottom there, there's some wet straw and kitchen scraps, and pretty much this will become the only compost area that I'll use, because any crops that need composting I do straight on the beds. You can see here in the brassica bed, that's last year's chard chopped up underneath the straw. I just find it's a far more efficient way of composting than carrying it across the garden and turning it several times and carrying it back again. So this is the brassicas, and you can see there the back of the herb wall, and this is one of my beds of comfrey. It'll be due for a second cut very shortly. So if we turn around, oh, here we go, there's a water feature. This is something else that I've done very recently. The green that you can see in the trough there is watercress. We've got wild rocket around these stones, and there's a stone trough here that collects the water that runs out of that trough, and that runs down into a well, a reservoir, where a pump pumps it back up to there. The weather station hidden in the rotting log. This is a tomato tower. This is the first time I've had a go at doing this. So I've got some stock wire, lined it with wool and filled it with compost, and I've planted hardy cherry tomatoes around the outside of it, and it's starting to fill out really nicely now. I'm really quite pleased with that. So this is, like I say, a new feature that I've added, and I'm really quite impressed with it, to be honest with you. So as we walk up the garden, we've got umbellifers as broad beans at the end of the bed there, underplanted with beetroot. I'll show you, there might be something that the camera can pick up. There you go, there's some beetroot sown underneath the broad beans, so when the broad beans are over, the beetroot will take over, and I can use the bed space twice quite efficiently. There are a few parsnips coming up there. It's been a bit poor this year for the parsnips, and the carrots as well. There's a few carrots. The beans are coming on quite nicely, and here are my poor potatoes. The frost that we had in May gave them a severe battering. and I've only got 12 plants left out of 20, which is a little bit disappointing. But the surviving 12 are looking quite healthy. They could do with a bit more growth, but we're getting there. And this is a green manure bed. This is Phacelia, which I'll cut down at some point in the near future. And undersown is buckwheat and crimson clover, and hopefully they'll come on as soon as I cut the Phacelia down. Here we've got leeks and onions. I did my best to try and mix crops up, maximise the space, so I plant my onions in, and it looks like we might have a molehill there. And then interplant them with the leeks. Now these are just getting their feet under the table, so to speak, so I'll go through it and weed it, and then I'll sow clover in as a green manure for overwinter. This is garlic. Somewhere in amongst all that lot there is some leeks and onions as well, which are doing surprisingly better than I thought they would, but there you go, just goes to show. We've got some umbellifers in here. There's broad beans, chard, celeriac, and spinach. And over here we've got the squashes. So there's four courgette plants. There's a pumpkins, another pumpkin plant in the greenhouse with the sweet corn growing around it. And over there we've got a salad bed, or a green manure bed, which I tend to use for my salads. So as we walk up this end, we're now coming to the far end of the polytunnel, and you can just about make out underneath the apple tree. This is an area where I just didn't cut the grass because there's a load of daffodils under there, so I didn't want to chop them off, and then the foxgloves appeared, so I didn't want to cut those either, so I've left this now as a wildlife area. Yeah, there's my push bike leaning up against the tree. Not really. And you can just make out at the back, if we walk at the back here, I've got a nice patch of wild garlic. It's on its last legs now, but that came back. That was planted last year, and that did really well, and it's seeded, and there's a few other fresh wild garlic plants popping up, so I'm really pleased with that. Oh yeah, these are my barrels that I use for making nettle tea and comfrey tea. I haven't made any nettle tea yet because I've got plenty of compost tea, but this is comfrey tea in there. Yummy. So that'll be decanted shortly and used for the flowering plants. Now we make our way into the polytunnel, where it's ridiculously hot at the moment. So along this bed you can see I've got peppers, chilies, there's a lot of coriander that's all gone to seed, which is fine. I'll let that go to seed, and hopefully it'll self-set and I'll get a load more. And you can see there's the clover in there. I do like my clover. This side we've got tomatoes. You can see it's a bit difficult to see from this side. I'll go to the other end and show you. With some basil underneath, and here we've got tomatoes. These are a cherry tomato. They're extremely vigorous growing, and underneath them I've got some low growing bush variety of cherry tomato, which is really sweet, coralic, lovely tomato. There's a bit of calendula there. And there's two very sorry looking Cape gooseberries. I think it might be a bit warm in here for them. Yeah, we've got a fruit tree there. This is lemon, I think. And right, okay, so if we look here, you can see where the strings, I've got the strings at an angle to try and bring the tomatoes over the path a little bit more, to use that aerial space, which then allows the crops behind them, which are yet more tomatoes, to get a little bit more light. So there, and at the back here we've got some chili plants, more coriander, the grapes, which are going bananas, and then up at the far end, up here, We've got more clover. We've got butternut squash will be going in this bed in a couple of weeks. So I'll just let the clover do its thing. Hopefully some of these flowers will have germinated and sow more seeds, and I'll have more clover. More clover means less weeding. Here we've got a Marabella, which is a plum. It's not looking particularly healthy. I think it's far too hot in here. And there's an apricot here as well. This was planted this year. It's looking a little bit the worse for wear, but I think with some pruning shortly, that'll sort itself out. And as we look back, you can see it's like, I don't know, it might be too light. I'll move around this way. You can see the structure. It was quite a feat, considering I built all of this on my own. So you sort of look up into the roof space there. You see it's all cross braced, and no, I was very pleased with this after I finished it. It took a lot of hard work, but we got there in the end. Now we're coming out at the front of the polytunnel. So I've got a few trays of lettuces there. They'll go in shortly. There's more lettuces to follow on, and there's some spinach in there as well. These are perennial onions. The ones at the front here are a Welsh onion, a white Welsh onion, and the ones at the back are Egyptian walking onions. And we've got some surprise asparagus appear in this bed. 2 years I've tried planting asparagus, and for 2 years got nothing. And then so I decided to plant the onions in here, and the asparagus decided it wanted to grow here as well. So I'm going to have to find a new home for my onions. So walking around, this is the greenhouse. You can see there's just a few seedlings left in here, not much now. So I've got cucumbers in this bed. This is the hotbed. I've dropped it down to its lowest level now. You can see there's another pile of concrete blocks here, which I took off. So in January, I'll empty all the compost out of here, which is basically rotted farmyard manure. Put the concrete blocks back on, and I've got some bricks to raise it up just a little bit higher. And then I fill that with barnyard scrapings, and I use it as a seed bed. And then as soon as everything's out, I'll plant either melons or cucumbers or some form of climbing cucurbit in there, which seems to do a very good job at turning the farmyard manure into a really nice compost. So there we are. That's the garden. As you can see, we'll head up the avenue of currants. So at the moment I've got rhubarb up at the top here, but I'm going to move that over into what's going to be the forest garden. And this area here where the clay oven is and the trampoline, Grant's building a barbecue, so we'll have a barbecue and sort of seating area up here. And then right over the other side of the garden, we've got the orchard. Now we planted this year, so this is the front half of the orchard. That's olive tree, peach tree, apple tree, big apple tree, and you can see a pear tree at the back there. And you can see this is my attempt at trying to bend wood. So I bent the wood as far as I could without it snapping, and I've covered it with grass clippings so that the heat from the decomposing grass clippings and the moisture stretch the fibres of the wood. And then every couple of days I come, and as you can see here, I've put a brick in between the iron stake to move it out, so I'll keep moving it out, and hopefully I'll get it bent through 90 degrees, which is the plan. So I want that as a bed edge to continue from the Jerusalem artichokes, and it'll go all the way around to somewhere over there. And what I'm going to plant in here, I'm not quite sure. The rhubarb will come up here, and I'm going to get some bamboo in here, but I'm not quite sure what else. So this is going to become more of the forest garden sort of area. So we've got the Jerusalem artichokes. Here are two cuttings of thornless blackberry. We've got gooseberries, raspberries, more raspberries, and there's a poor little fig tree here. It's struggling on, but the frost back in May really did give it a hammering, and it killed a lot of the buds off, but you know, it's getting there. So in the middle of the orchard we've got the chickens. This is our chicken run. You can see there's an old shed which I converted to a chicken coop. Water, and in the middle here there's another apple tree, and we've got cherry plums. So all of this foliage you can see are runners off the cherry plum tree, which is somewhere hidden in the middle of this lot. You just about see it out there. That's the main cherry plum there. So this goes all the way up to the barn. Oh, here we've got well, what's left of two purple sprouting broccolis. I wanted them out the bed so I could plant the bed. So I hang them upside down from the branches of the tree for the chickens to peck at, and it appears they quite enjoy that. So I'm going to head round to the back of the orchard. Right, I'm now walking round towards the back of the farm. Here on my left there's a pigsty, and this is the pig pen. As you see, there are no pigs, but we do have potatoes, onions, and quite a lot of thistles. So while the pigs aren't in there, we're actually utilising it for some additional growing space. But I think we'll be getting pigs at the end of this year. And then here we are in the back of the orchard. So we've got one. This is an apple tree. There's another apple tree. Two more over there, and this is a nectarine, which I'm really pleased to say actually has got some fruit on. Yay! So that's the vegetable garden and the forest garden, and we're walking back in and just see the magnificent Copper Beech. It'd be even more magnificent if it wasn't quite so close to the house. So I've got quite a few plans up at this area to introduce more perennial vegetables and fruits. The only thing is, the more things I plant here, the more awkward it is to cut the grass. But, you know, got to moan about something. Right, so that's me rambling on for nearly 20 minutes about my garden and what we're doing here. So thank you very much for listening and watching.